Okay, we are rolling, as they say. And I always like to kind of stall for about 30 seconds because the live stream takes a little while to kick in. And by now, it's getting to us, and we're probably live.
Great.
All right. So we're back here broadcasting live from the FPA NorCal conference in beautiful San Francisco. I almost said San Diego. That's where I was last time. San Francisco, which, truth be told, is kind of my preference of those two towns, if I'm being honest. And with us, we have Chad Ramberg, who is the president of Box Insurance.
Yes, sir. It's good to be here. Thank you.
It's great to have you here, Chad. And so as we were talking a bit off camera, what we like to do here at goRIA, fueled by investment news, is answer one of two questions. Why should I go RIA, or how can I go RIA? So I think you're going to be helpful with that second one.
Well, you know what? The why should I go RIA?
Yeah?
We work with a lot of breakaway RIAs.
All right, why don't you start with that? Tell us.
Yeah. So usually what happens is it's really funny because when you're breaking away, you've got so much going at you. You know, you're setting up custodial, you're choosing your compliance team, you're figuring out your insurance and just the basics of business. And it's really stressful and difficult, so we try and make it easier. But then, 2 years on, I have never had a principal of a firm saying, man, I shouldn't have done that. It's always, dang, I wish I would have done that 2 years earlier, or 5 years earlier, or whatever it was.
You know, so I'm going to give a little plug to the FPA here. So FPA has something called Media Source. And if you're an advisor and you're not part of the FPA, you should think about it. They've got a lot of resources. One of my favorite is Media Source. So as someone who's not actually a journalist myself, but I play one on the internet, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I use their Media Source all the time. And I've put out twice now, which spans all the members of FPA, which is pretty significant. Is there anyone here that went RIA that, number one, regretted it, crickets,
Right.
and number two, which is even more outlandish, decided to go back to the broker-dealer space?
Right. Absolutely.
Zero. None whatsoever. Not even someone that says, I kind of regret it, honestly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's why you should go RIA. We cover this all the time.
Absolutely.
So I know when I went RIA, which I did about 5 years ago, we all have our checklist. I need my compliance. I need my technology, all the stuff you kind of covered. But insurance.
Yeah.
What should I, so if I'm coming from one of the wirehouses, I'm not worried about insurance because my branch manager is taking care of that for me. So if I'm going to have my own firm, what should I be thinking about for insurance?
Yeah, the first thing that you really want to recognize is it's not standardized. You know, most of the property casualty insurance out there sold is standardized by an organization called Insurance Services Office. They've said specifically for financial services, they're not going to set a standard.
I never knew that. That's interesting. Really?
Yeah. And it's really, I see it as a double-edged sword. The good part about that is, well, you can do whatever you want. The cautionary note is you'll want to make sure that you get good guidance and you're selecting it and carving it in a way that really meets what you're building. You know, if you're an RIA that's, you know, plain vanilla, you like the publicly traded assets only, it looks one way. If maybe you've got a sliver of alts, 10, 15%, it's going to look a little bit different. If you're going to sponsor a private investment, it's going to look even different from there. So, and that's just at a very high surface level. You can go really deep, really fast with this.
All right, well, let's peel back some of the layers of that onion then, because now I would like to get a little more granular. So E&O insurance is always top of mind.
Yep.
Right? And to your point, you know, depending on if you're going to be a plain vanilla shop or perhaps a little bit more, I don't want to say sophisticated, but perhaps more complex.
Yeah.
What else? I hear a lot about cyber security insurance, because I know we just recently got that.
Yes.
What's the deal with that?
So the key with cyber insurance is everybody kind of has a really good concept of what that is. We're hacked, it's financially harming us and or our clients. Usually that's because they're getting data. The first line of defense on that is breach mitigation. So you want to make sure and you know, what do we have to do legally to protect our clients, maintain our fiduciary duty? So that's the first reason why an RIA wants to have cyber coverage. The second reason is as well, if they are somehow able to prove that because of that breach, somebody went out and bought a Tesla on their credit because of that breach, it's also going to cover that. So those are the two areas of cyber coverage that become important.
Yeah.
And the carriers are highly incentivized to do a really good job in that first part, so it never gets to the second part.
Okay. Fantastic. So E&O, cyber, what else should I be thinking about from the business line? We'll do something else at some other point for health insurance, because that is a question we get a lot from these advisors. Yeah. And the short answer is it's not that big of a deal. right? You just get health insurance.
Right.
Right. A story I shared earlier today, we were talking to this advisor from a big wirehouse. And he was like, I really want to go independent. He was like, but how do you get business cards?
Right.
I was like, dude, you just get business cards. You go to the printer, you get business cards. It's not a big deal. Health insurance, obviously a little bit more complex than business card, but not a big deal. Okay, but for business lines, we have the E&O, of course. We have cyber. Anything else that they should be thinking about?
Yeah, the part that everybody thinks is included with cyber or the E&O is if somebody steals money from the client or you through social engineering. Okay, that's crime. That's a crime.
Social engineering.
Yeah.
Help define that.
Yeah, so social engineering is really the most simple way to think about that is your client is hacked.
Okay.
So your client's hacked, you're not
Get
hacked.
myself on camera here.
And what's happened is that fraudster is impersonating the client. So as the advisor, you think you're working with the client, and you find out later, nope, that wasn't a client, that was a fraudster, and now the money's gone.
Okay, so we have that happen. Well, we have attempts of that pretty often, actually. So this is getting an email from someone who you think is your client, and they're like, send me some money right away. That type of thing, like a phishing or whatever you would call this?
It can be like that, and you're right. It is happening all the time for everybody.
Yeah.
And you know it, and most of us are getting pretty smart about it. The challenge is it's an arms race between the good guys and the bad guys, right? So one of the most interesting social engineering claims we had in the last couple of years is we had a client walk into the advisor's office, and the client said, hey, I'm buying this house. I need to get money transferred to the trust company, $300,000. No problem. The advisor, high level of service, kind of like a family office type, really close-knit group.
Yeah.
He says, let's help you out. Come on over here. We'll get it transferred away from custodial over to where you need it. They sat down at the advisor's computer. The advisor helped walk him through it. The client pulled out his paperwork. Here's where I need to send it to. Off goes the money. The advisor's the hero here because the advisor says, hey, let's do this. Let's call the trust company, make sure this went through as we expected. When they called the trust company, they said, what are you talking about? That's not us.
Wow.
Now, the question I get all the time when I talk to advisors on this, well, that's not the advisor's fault. That's clearly the client's fault. But do you, as the advisor, want to tell your client, we just lost $300,000 at my desk, and sorry, you're out of luck.
That's right.
Right? So
Yeah.
first thing he did was he called custodial, say, can we stop this? This was on a Friday afternoon.
Okay.
And custodial said, well, actually, everything's shutting down. I don't know. He called me, and I said, well, we've got coverage. So good news is there's a deductible, but we've got coverage. And the reason I say the advisor was the hero here is because they were able to stop the transaction. They just couldn't find out until the following Wednesday because of all the checks and balances that had to go through to confirm. Because at that point, nobody wants to say, no, we didn't lose the money unless they're absolutely sure.
For sure. That's a really interesting, albeit scary story. Okay.
Yeah.
So something else that we really pride ourselves at goRIA is specificity. How much does all this cost? And I know it ranges, but we got advisors there. They got their pen and paper. They got their spreadsheet. Okay, compliance is going to cost me this. Technology is going to cost me that. Insurance is going to cost what? I know it's a range, but how can they start thinking about this?
Yeah. The short answer here is really unsatisfying. It depends, but I can give you a range.
Yeah.
So, minimum premiums, interestingly enough, have been flat for the last 10 years. So in real money terms, it's been getting more competitive, which is the good news.
So when you say minimum, no matter how small you might be, there's still a minimum they're going to want.
That's right.
What does that look like?
That's about $2,000
per year.
A year.
Okay, so that's not too bad.
That's not bad at all.
Okay.
So then we could throw out different types of firms at different sizes, but it's not a straight line. There's a curve to it, and you get some economies of scale. Okay. If you're looking at plain vanilla, you might be $100 million. Plain vanilla, you can get a package that meets your custodial requirements anywhere between $4,500 and $6,500 a year.
Okay, for a $100 million book of business.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. If you go up and you do $200 million, it's not going to double.
Right.
It might go up to 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Okay. And then where it gets interesting is usually as you grow, if you're an advisory firm, you bump into larger clients that have a more diverse, more unique book. And as you start layering in some alts, you get 10, 15% alts. You're going to see at 250 million, you might be paying 10 to 12.
Okay, including the alts.
Including
exposure.
the alts, so you're covered for your alts. We want to make
Right.
sure that we get, I call it the Ramberg rule.
Okay.
That's a little self-serving. Everybody knows the Pareto principle, 80-20.
Sure.
Ramberg rule is 95-5.
All right, cool.
95% of your claims come from 5% of the assets out there.
Yeah. Oh,
And
that's
you can
probably
guess
right,
which
yeah.
ones those are.
That's right.
So
Interesting.
so that's why if you've got some exposure in those alternative space, we really want to make sure you've got coverage for it, because we don't want that to be the big expense.
Okay. That makes perfect sense to me for sure. So, okay, some closing thoughts, because I know you're going up fairly soon. What can you tell the audience? One thing they want to think about for sure when they're choosing their insurance package.
Yeah, the key thing is when you're choosing your insurance package, make sure you're working with a specialist in this area. The way you choose...
That's a great point.
Yeah, because the thing is there are hundreds of thousands of good insurance brokers out there, but if they're not serving hundreds or thousands of advisors, they're not going to get it as well. And so the way you can find the specialist is you can ask your custodial, give me a list. You can go to your compliance firm. You can say, hey, who do you know that's good in this space? Mm-hmm. There's a very small handful of them out there. They all work nationally. They all have a little bit different flavor, and you can find which one you fit. But talk with that group first, and you'll be in a lot better shape.
That is great advice, because you can get this type of insurance from a lot of places, but
That's
you want to
right.
get your E&O and cyber from the same guy that's insuring your Honda, probably not.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So that's, my thing is, just like in the advisory space, you find a specialist. If you're serving only a certain type of client, you're probably really good at that. Same thing here.
That's a great way to end it here. Chad, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Okay, so on behalf of goRIA, fueled by Investment News, I'm Chuck Vela. That's going to wrap it up for today. We will be back tomorrow for another full day of coverage and a lot more content. So join us for that. We'll see you then. Thanks for joining us. And thanks
you.
again. That was great, Chad.
Appreciate it.